All right, guys, welcome to my presentation. The topic is achieving a massive mindset. So before we begin, I would like to explain the process of learning. So yeah, you might not realize the importance of knowledge right away, but that's just part of the process of learning. So the three steps are knowledge, realization, internalization. You have to have the knowledge first before you realize its importance. And then once you realize it, eventually it'll just become your default state. You'll internalize it. So today is an injection of knowledge. Whatever you do with it is up to you. So keep that in mind while you listen, and know that I'm not trying to attack anyone or be personal about anything. So Act 1, the confident mindset. I think the most powerful mindset to have is the mindset of confidence, or you can say the perspective of confidence. So what is it? Well, some other words for it are self-worth, self-respect, self-value, self-confidence, whatever. It's how you approach life, and it's what self-confidence is an inherent trust in yourself that you can handle what's coming, right? So if you're anxious about your upcoming exam, if you're anxious about your upcoming exam, you don't trust that you'll be able to pass it and do well on it, right? But with a confident mindset, you trust and believe that you can do it. You can handle anything that comes your way, whether it be exam, race, fit test, job interview, anything. It applies to everything. So the word confidence, it comes from the Latin word, which means fidere. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it means to trust. It's a feeling of internalized trust in ourselves. So how do we achieve this? How do we become confident people? And why is it beneficial to do so? I think the greatest benefit is that we open up opportunities that we otherwise might miss. For example, if you're one of the most direct examples would be applying for a job. Would you apply to a job that you think you are unqualified for, even though you meet all the requirements of the job? Well, someone who's unconfident might not, because they don't believe that they could get the job, right? And this extends to all areas of life. There's so many opportunities out there that we can't grasp because we're afraid of the future. We're afraid that we can't do it. It's not within our power. So it's important to trust yourself that you can handle reality. All this really leads to an increased quality of life. That's what we're all after. That's what we want. That's why we go to school. That's why we train. That's why we don't eat cookies every day. We want to increase our own quality of life. So let's do a thought experiment. This guy's name is Yuri Nader. He's extremely shy, no self-confidence. He never stands up for himself, and he's always trying to please other people. Would you trust this guy to, let me rephrase that. What kind of a life do you think he'll live? If you control all other factors except self-confidence, obviously he'd live a better life if he's confident. And it is possible for him to live a really fulfilling and good life. But being confident can increase this chance. It opens up opportunities. And being this guy isn't fun. So when I was a kid in high school, elementary, this is what I was. I was a extremely shy kid, never stood up for myself. I was always apologizing for everything I did because I thought that I wasn't worth anything. So it's not fun to be that person. But I now realize that if I never was this person, then I wouldn't be confident today. I would never have went on the path to self-improvement and never tried to better my situation. So that's food for thought. And after I changed my mindset, I think I started changing in university or CJ. That's when I started becoming more confident, and eventually I joined True Grit, which is the team that we're all part of, and it really changed my life. You know, I went from a scrub to a god. Well, not a god, but you get the idea. I even went to the highest level of Dragonbone, so I went to World Cup. It's the highest possible level of Dragonbone. It's basically a televised event in China where they invite teams and pay for their hotels, pay for their flight tickets, pay for everything. So I went as part of Team Canada, and it really humbled me, turned me into a better person. But all this was achieved because I believed in myself. And I never would have thought I could do this when I was in elementary or high school. I never thought I'd amount to anything. And that's why confidence is important. It opens up your opportunities. So how do you identify a lack of self-confidence? Well, here are some examples. Do you ever feel guilty for being happy? For example, if I eat a cookie, eat chocolate, eat butter, I'll feel bad for doing it because, oh man, I'm gonna get so fat after this. Why do I do this? Why am I so weak-willed? Blah, 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 whatever. But the act of eating the cookie is pleasurable, but you don't derive pleasure from it. You also think negatively of everything you do. So, I only made national team because Mike helped me. I only did this because this. It's only because of my protein. It's only because of my supplements. Right, Martin? Supplements. You can never take credit for your accomplishments. Oh, I only got this job because my mom knew someone. I only blah, blah, blah. No, you found that job. You made NT. You did this, right? Martin talked about this too. Take responsibility for your success as well as your failure. Another big example of a lack of confidence is imposter syndrome. So I'm sure you felt this at some point in your life. It's estimated that 70% of people experience this at some point, but it's the feeling that you're fake and you don't belong where you are. The internal experience of believing that you're not as competent as others perceive you to be, right? Even though that you earned your position, you don't believe that you earned it. So what conclusion can we draw from this? Well, we can draw the conclusion that the absolute personal value gained from success is not solely dependent on the magnitude of the achievement. So what does this mean? It means that it's not only your success that's important, but how you decide to view that success. It also means that no matter how big the success is, you won't become confident from it if you don't believe that it is success. We can even go deeper. We can say that the optimal experience of life is not solely achieved through pleasure, pain, truth, freedom, or success, but also includes how one decides to see it. So we can only live in the conditions that we are born, but we can choose whether or not we appreciate those conditions. And that's why perspective is so important, because it's literally your reality. It's everything. All right, so now you know what confidence is. You guys follow me? No questions or anything? Okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, cool. So that brings us to Act 2, the confidence feedback loop. How do we create confidence? Or how do we change our mindset? our perspective? Well, I think in order to figure that out, we could look at how we lose confidence first. Take a look at this, the vicious cycle, the snake eating its own tail, the vicious cycle of self-doubt and worse performance. So, just like the snake that eats its own tail, we reduce our own confidence through the vicious cycle. You perform less, you perform worse, then you begin to doubt yourself. You doubt yourself so that you perform worse again, and the cycle goes on, right? And the thing to note about this is, if you ever studied engineering or science or any sort of math, I'm sure you've heard of feedback before. There's two types of feedback, negative and positive. Negative feedback is good, it's stable. It stabilizes at a certain point, but positive feedback, it blows up to infinity or negative infinity. And that's what the vicious cycle is. It's positive feedback. Your self-doubt increases itself. So that's inherently unstable. It'll blow up to negative infinity. So you can think of this as if you're a dragon boat athlete, you're doing well. All your performances that you're satisfied with your performances. And then whoop, one day there's bad weather and you do shit on your time trial. That little bit of worse performance will turn into a little bit of self-doubt. That self-doubt will cause you to do worse next time. And the cycle goes on, right? Then you lose all your self-confidence and believe that you're slow and fat. So how do we break out of this vicious cycle? Well, if you've paid attention to the name of the presentation, you use perspective. So a worse performance does not necessarily have to lead to self-doubt. If you change your perspective about that little storm and say that, oh, it was just a storm, I'm still improving, doesn't matter, then you'll turn that self-doubt into self-belief. Self-belief into better performance into self-belief. We can't control how much confidence we have in the moment, and we can't control our performance. Well, we can, but within boundaries. You can't one day decide to pull 1 minute on erg, 500 meters. It's just not possible. But we can control our perspective. So instead of, take for example, the almighty fitness test that everyone gets nervous for. You get on your OC, you race as well as you could, and you get your results. The results come back. Oh no, I'm in 10th place now, not 5th anymore. I'm a pile of garbage. I'm slow. I don't deserve to paddle anymore. I'm just gonna eat cookies all day and do nothing. Or the alternative perspective would be to say, damn, I'm 10th place now. I used to be 5th. Everyone got so much faster. That means I need to get faster too. Side note, if you want to become faster than people, you not only have to become faster yourself, but you have to get faster than them getting faster, because everyone's training. So just because your place on an OC test gets worse doesn't mean you're going backwards. You're just not improving faster than other people are improving. And side note. So that's the power of perspective. Using the power of perspective, you can change the vicious cycle into the virtuous circle. Balance in all things. The positive feedback loop of self-belief and increased performance. That's where we want to be. That's how you build your confidence. That's how you go from urinator to something better, someone more confident and ready to take on the world. So your self-belief feeds back on itself. It's positive feedback, blows up to infinity. Your self-belief leads to increased performance, And your increased performance leads to self-belief. That brings us that brings us to part 3, or act 3. A new perspective. So what kind of perspective should we approach everything with? How do you think about the world around you? And how do you view yourself? What do you think about yourself? Are you a fat, ugly piece of shit when you look in the mirror? Or are you just you? Someone that you've known forever and someone that you love because that's you. So let's think about the brain in order to understand ourselves. Why do we eat those cookies? Why do we stay up until 4 a.m. playing League or Valorant or eating pizza or whatever? So I like to think of the brain as a system, as a battle between your human brain and your monkey brain. Your monkey brain is the instinctual brain. It wants to eat cookies, eat cake, and it doesn't want to paddle. It just wants to reap the rewards from paddling fast. But your human brain is the opposite. It's the logical part of you. It knows that I should keep paddling on this 2K, otherwise everyone will think I'm stupid. Even though your monkey brain's like, stop it, it hurts. I don't like pain. Your human brain knows what it must do to become better. It thinks about the future. So if we think about our brain as a black box, it receives sensory input in the form of electrical signals, and it outputs the same thing to your muscles and thoughts and whatever. And your human and monkey brain take these inputs and decide what to do. If you see a cookie on the table, your monkey brain wants to eat it, but your logical brain knows that if it eats it, it'll get fat. They both draw from the same memories, personalities, traits, and genetics, but they do different things. So in order to understand ourselves, we have to acknowledge our desires, our animal instincts, because that's what we are. We're animals. And without acknowledging yourself, you can never love yourself. So you need to understand what you really want and why you do things. Why do you procrastinate? Why do you do this? And then you need to forgive yourself for it, because everyone does it. So we need to become monkey. We need to accept our emotional, instinctual monkey brains and break free from our mental chains. You can't suppress it. It's always there. Suppressing it would basically turn you into a machine with nothing but logic. I sent this meme a couple of weeks ago, and I assumed everyone would understand it, but I now realize that people have different perspectives, and they might not understand the way I do. So it's basically saying that the monkey is in a cage, physical cage, but the human is in a mental cage. We form rules for ourselves and cage ourselves. Like, never eat cookies, go on diet, get a job, work 40 years, retire, and then you can buy a motorcycle, right? We live in a mental cage that holds us back. An example would be our unconfidence. That's a mental cage that holds you back from your true potential, from opportunities. So to break free from that, we need to accept who we truly are and accept our monkey. Become monkey. That's perspective number 1. Perspective number 2. What is reality? Our experience of reality is and only is our perception of it. So go back to the brain. Think about what it is. It's a pile of gray mush that's inside your skull, surrounded by bone, and all it receives is sensory input in the form of electrical signals. So basically, it's this pile of mush inside a bone cage that receives electricity and then somehow needs to predict what reality is around it. Isn't that insane? Our brain is a big prediction engine. It hallucinates reality. It hallucinates whatever's around us. I'm sure you've had a hallucination before. For example, a dream, you think it's completely real. How do you tell the difference between a dream and reality? Well, it's the same thing because it's just your perception of reality. We are always hallucinating everything around us. And when we agree on what we hallucinate about, that's what we call reality. If two people hallucinate the same thing, then you know that tree is there, or that lamp works, or the concept of light, or anything, right? That's how powerful your perspective is. It literally changes how you view the world, how you see things. So some examples that I found on the internet from this source of studies, weird grad students and PhD students doing weird studies. Well, here are some examples. People wearing heavy backpacks, they see, when they look at hills, they see steeper hills. Because your backpack is heavier and you have a harder time walking uphill, you view the hill as larger. And another example would be after stuffing yourself completely at all you can eat, sushi, you say, oh, I'm never going to eat again. I'll never go back to all you can eat sushi. And then 2 weeks later, you're back. You imagine that you'll never eat again, but you'll literally eat the next day. And if you have a grabber in your hand that extends your reach, objects appear closer to you. And then blah, 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 successful golfers, baseball batters, blah, blah, blah. Whatever we believe is true will become true. Whatever we see as true will become true, because that's how we work. Our perception is reality. That's perspective number 2, the power of perspective. And the third one is the external world. So everything we have, we take for granted. If you look at anything around you, just think about what it is. Take, for example, this computer in front of you. Can you even imagine what's inside the computer? How many millions of people have worked their entire lives to develop the transistors and screen technology and material technology? And then the software, how many thousands of people have created the software over 50 years of technological advancement? Or even a tree. How old are they? They're decades old. They start from a little seed and then they grow into these giant tentacle monsters that grow green leaves that then fall off every year and turn different colors. Have you ever thought of that? We literally take everything for granted, and all you have to do is look around to see that there's beauty in everything. So the lesson is to stop taking things for granted and learn to appreciate what you have. And that's the third perspective. Just look around you. In fact, even as an experiment, if you look at something right now on your desk and try and focus on it, if you focus on it, you'll notice that it becomes bigger. It looks bigger, it looks brighter, and it looks more detailed than before. That's the power of perspective. Human eyes can only focus on very small, or they can't focus on your whole field of vision. And that's why, well, not why, but we take things for, that's part of the reason why we take things for granted, because we just don't see. We don't see how incredible everything is. So, a new perspective. We learned in part 1 that the optimal experience of life is not solely achieved through pleasure, pain, truth, freedom, or success, but also includes how one decides to see it, right? You want to enjoy your life, so enjoy it. Just enjoy it. That's it. You can have the best life ever, but still be unhappy if you don't think it's the best life ever. And we have to celebrate our successes. Realize that, or take responsibility for your own success and believe in yourself. We have to accept and love ourselves. Embrace your monkey brain. Realize why you like cookies and playing League. And then we also need to accept and love everything around us, the world. And then the last thing would be that struggle and failure is the catalyst for growth. If I was never unconfident, I never would be confident today. And you could say that about a lot of things. If I was never slow, I'd never be fast today. If you were never short, you never want to be tall. Blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. Everything is in pairs. You can't live life without failure or pain, because that would make pleasure and success meaningless. And that's what I think the perspective we should have on life. We'll become confident people as a result. That's the byproduct, not the goal. So all this to say that if we change our perspective, we can change the vicious cycle into the creation of choice, self-belief, increased performance. If you look at this symbol, it's a symbol of a snake eating its own tail. Is it though? It's an ancient symbol that's been around for thousands of years. It dates back to ancient Egypt and then ancient Greece and now today. But is it really a snake that eats its own tail? Change our perspective. I see it as a snake that creates itself. It's creating its own body within itself in a way that it sees fit. It's creating itself and regurgitating its own body instead of eating itself. And that's exactly what people are. That's exactly what life is. We create meaning. We create our choices. We create ourselves. That's the creation of choice. And that is what we should all, that's the kind of mindset we should all have. Well, thanks for listening. Change your perspective, change your life.